Welcome back to Mythic Codex Legends Unveiled, the place where mythology, folklore, and legends come alive. I am your host Eliza, and tonight we'll uncover the stories that have captivated humanity for thousands of years. Turn the page, our journey begins now. Tonight's story is about a creature that didn't come once. It didn't come every few years. It came every single year. And when the final night of the year arrived, families knew exactly what was coming. They would lock their doors, hide their children, secure their animals, and run. Because somewhere beyond the village, something was waiting. Something hungry. Something that had learned that humans were easy prey. Tonight, we're talking about the Nian. But I don't want to tell you this story the way you've probably heard it before. I want to take you back to the night when people believed that the beginning of the new year could also mean the beginning of a nightmare. So turn down the lights, get comfortable, and ask yourself one question. What would you do if you knew a monster was coming for you tonight and you knew it came back every year? I know what I would do. I would definitely run. I wouldn't want to stay. I would run. Who or what was the Nian? Nian is described in Chinese folklore as a terrifying mythical beast. Different versions describe Nian differently. Some portray it as resembling a massive lion-like creature, sometimes with a horn, enormous teeth, and terrifying face. In other versions, it is associated with the mountains or the sea. But regardless of the version, Nian had one thing in common. It was hungry. According to the best known version of legend, Nian would appear around the end of the lunar year. And when it came, it wasn't coming to say goodbye to the old year. It was coming to feed. People were said to fear losing their livestock, their crops, their homes, and even their lives. Imagine living in a village where the arrival of the new year wasn't something you celebrated. It was something you survived. The night everyone ran. Picture the village. The sun is disappearing. The temperature is dropping. The streets are becoming quiet. Doors are being slammed shut. Animals are being pulled inside. Parents are gathering their children. And nobody wants to be the last person outside. Because somewhere beyond the village, Nian is coming. The people had learned what to do. They would gather what they could, carry, and escape towards the mountains. They weren't brave. They weren't fighting. They were surviving. And honestly, can you blame them? I honestly don't blame them. I would probably do the same thing. If something enormous came into your town every year and tore through homes and attacked people, would you stay? Or would you run? What would you do? I know what I would do. I don't know if I would have stayed. I probably would have ran. I wouldn't want to face that beast. But then something changed. One year, according to the famous legend, an elderly man appeared in the village. He had an unusual request. While everyone else was preparing to flee, he wanted to stay. The villagers couldn't understand it. Why would anyone willingly stay behind when Nian was coming? They warned him, they begged him, but the old man refused to leave. The villagers eventually escaped into the mountains and left him alone in an empty village with a monster on its way. The beast arrives, night falls, the village is silent. No children laughing, no animals making noise, no voices coming from the houses, just darkness. Then Nian arrives. The creature moves through the village, looking for food. It searches, it sniffs, it tears through what it can find. But something is different tonight. There is someone still there. The old man. And instead of running, he's waiting because he knows something Nian doesn't. He knows the beast has weaknesses. 3 of them. Red, fire, and brilliant light, and incredibly loud sounds. The old man begins covering the village in red paper, red decorations, red clothing. Lights begin glowing, and then the silence is shattered by a bang! Another explosion, bang! Another and another. The creature freezes. For the first time, Nian is afraid. The beast feared red. Think about that for a second. This enormous creature has terrorized people for years. People had fled from it. Families had hidden from it. But now, the tables had turned. The monster was running. According to the legend, Nian was frightened by the red decoration, bright lights, and explosion of sounds. And the creature fled. The people eventually returned and discovered something unbelievable. Their village was still standing. Their homes were still there. Their animals had survived, and the old man was alive. The villagers realized that what they had feared wasn't invincible. It could be frightened. It could be defeated. And most importantly, they didn't have to spend the rest of their lives running. But here's where the story gets interesting. Because think about it. What happens next? The villagers didn't simply forget what happened. They remembered. Every year, they repeated the things that had driven Nian away. Red decorations, lanterns, firecrackers, bright lights, noises. What had once been a symbol of fear became a symbol of protection and a celebration. And that's one of my favorite things about legends. Sometimes something terrifying doesn't disappear. Sometimes we transform it. Something that once represented fear can eventually represent courage. The gore of Nian. Now, let's talk about the part that makes this legend so horrifying. The traditional stories tell us that Nian attacked people and livestock, but they don't give us a detailed catalog of gruesome attacks. So, instead of pretending the folklore gives us graphic details that it doesn't, let's image what those nights would have looked like. A door splintered from a single blow. Livestock pen torn apart. Food scattered across the floor. Bloodstains, blood staining the snow or dirt outside homes. Footprints leading away into the darkness. A child's toy lying abandoned in a doorway. And then silence. Because that's what makes monsters terrifying. Not always what you see. Sometimes it's what you don't see. Image walking through your village the morning after Nian had passed. You don't know who survived. You don't know whose home you'll find destroyed. You don't know what you'll find behind the next door. And then you realize your own house is still standing. Your family is still alive. And somehow you survived another year. Here's my question for you. If you were living in the village, would you believe the old man? Would you stay behind with him? Or would you run into the mountains with everyone else? Honestly, I don't know what I would have done, but I don't think I would have let an old man stay by himself. I probably would have stayed behind with him. I would have been more scared for him than I would have for me. Just let me know what you guys think. And here's another, even harder question. If running had kept you alive for years, would you have been brave enough to stop running? I feel like I would have been brave enough, not for me, but for someone else. If someone else insisted on staying behind, I feel like I would have been brave enough to stay behind with him. The real meaning behind the monster. There's something deeper hiding underneath this legend. Nian isn't just a monster. The story can be understood as a story about fear itself. Every year, the villagers expected disaster. They expected the same nightmare to return, and eventually, someone decided to face it. The monster didn't suddenly become weak. The villagers became smarter. They discovered what frightened it. They discovered that fear could be fought. And that's powerful. Because sometimes the thing standing in front of us looks impossible to defeat. But impossible doesn't always mean unbeatable. Sometimes you just haven't discovered the right weapon yet. The Red Knight. Now image the village after that first victory. Red lanterns glowing against the darkness, fire burning, drums pounding, explosions cracking through the night, people shouting, children watching the sky light up, and somewhere far away the beast retreats. The creature that once owned the night no longer controls it. The people do. And that's why I think Nian is more than just a scary monster story. It's a story about taking back your night, taking back your home, taking back your courage. But what if Nian came back? Now here's my question. What if the legend had a darker ending? What if the villagers were wrong? What if Nian didn't disappear forever? What if, somewhere beyond the mountains, something was still watching, waiting, listening, waiting for the fireworks to stop, waiting for the red lanterns to disappear, waiting for the village to become quiet again? Because monsters don't always have to die. Sometimes they just wait. Would you still celebrate New Year's Eve if you believed Nian was watching from the darkness? Honestly, if I knew that's what scared Nian, I would still celebrate. I wouldn't want that creature coming back. I'd want it to stay hidden, stay defeated. That's what I would have wanted. Let me know what you guys think. The Legend of the Beast. Whether you believe Nian was ever real isn't really the point. The legend has survived because it became connected to one of the most important celebrations in Chinese culture. Red decoration, lanterns, firecrackers, bright lights, noises. These traditions became part of the celebration of the Lunar New Year. And the story of Nian continued to be told as one explanation for why people use these symbols. And there's something beautiful about that. A monster that once represented terror eventually became part of a celebration of hope. Think about that. Fear became tradition. Darkness became light. Running became standing your ground. And the night that was once feared became a night worth celebrating. So here's my final question for you. So I'll leave you with this. What monster are you running from? Not literally. I'm talking about the things in life that makes you afraid. The things that make you want to hide. The things you convince yourself you'll never be strong enough to face. Because maybe the lesson of Nian isn't that monsters aren't real. Maybe it's that sometimes the monster is only as powerful as we allow it to be. Sometimes you have to light the lantern. Sometimes you have to make some noise. Sometimes you have to stand there. Look into the darkness and say, "Not tonight." Because tonight the monster runs and you stay. You don't have to answer that question in the comments. That's for you to answer. That's for you to decide for yourself. This is your host Eliza, and that brings us to the end of another episode of Mythic Codex Legends Unveiled. Nian may be a legend, but legends have a strange way of surviving. They travel from one generation to another. They change, they grow, and sometimes they become something completely different from what they start as. A story that once frightened people can eventually become a story that inspires them. So, the next time you see red lanterns glowing in the darkness, hear fireworks explode across the sky, or watch an entire community celebrate the beginning of a new year, remember the beast. Remember the night everyone ran. Remember the old man who stayed. And remember, sometimes the only way to defeat the thing you're afraid of is to stop running. I'll see you in the next legend. Until then, keep the lights on.